Welcome to Good Vibes and Exercise. My name is Zach Tacey, and today we have a brand new athlete joining our First Year Pro series, where we interview first year pro athletes. It's pretty simple, straightforward. Our guest today is Holly Smith, so with all that, let's get started. Hey Holly, how's it going?
How are you?
I am doing well. So glad to have you on for the First Year Pro series.
Awesome.
Just to give you a quick heads up, already got the recording locked and loaded. Yeah, and then otherwise we'll pretty much start out just brief intro and kind of go into some background and then finally get our way around to racing and then some of the future goals and plans as well for the upcoming season.
All right.
Cool. So just to get everything started here, why don't you briefly introduce yourself and like how you got into triathlon and your recent accomplishments?
Well, I'm Holly. Really, triathlon. I'm a physician, and during med school residency, I was kind of more of a runner, and I ran a lot, and then had enough injuries where I started biking, and just kind of fell into triathlon as something to kind of do just for fun. I never really had big ambitions of even being competitive in triathlon. It was more just something that, I thought it would be cool to say I did a triathlon, and then, I started training for an Ironman. I was like, oh, I want to say I did an Ironman. And it kind of just became like a hobby, just something to do. I guess my first Ironman was like 2015. And it was always just kind of about finishing. And that was kind of all it was for maybe 5 years or so. But I did start getting a little bit more competitive or realized that my times were becoming more competitive, I should say. And then around, I guess, 2020, kind of that pandemic year, I had a lot more time to train. I wasn't working as much because nobody was working. And so I started training more, focusing more on getting faster instead of just finishing races. Got a couple 70.3 wins, qualified for Kona, realized that, I could qualify to or I could, get my pro card, which was, like I said, it was never a big ambition or something I even thought possible. But at that point, I'm like, well, I've done all this other stuff. It'd be kind of fun, kind of different, something to do. So I went ahead and said, well, we'll just try it this year and see how it goes.
That's awesome. So, okay, so I mean, that sounds like everything just sort of like it just kind of flew into it. Everyone else I've talked to,
Right.
myself included, it's like, maybe a couple years out, you start realizing you're like, oh, I can kind of go for this pro card. Like maybe I can do this. And it sounds like at least for you, it just sort of happened. Like you just got good enough. Like there wasn't necessarily that distinct goal of, hey, I'm gonna go for my pro card. It was more like, hey, I'm fast enough to do this. Do I have
Yeah,
that?
kind of.
That's awesome. Go you. So in that case, where was your qualifying race?
To become a pro?
Yes.
Well, I actually, qualified. I guess it would have been 2021. I could have done it in 2022. It was at 70.3 Florida. I was the overall age group winner. But I wanted to race Kona, and I had been postponed through that. So
Yep.
racing as an age grouper. And then in 2022, I was the overall age group winner at Dash Miami. So that technically would have, qualified me, but I just continued to race as an age grouper throughout the year. Like I said, because I wanted to race in Kona.
Right.
At the end of, or the beginning of 2023 is when I decided to go ahead and get my pro card.
Go ahead and get it. Okay, so you qualified a couple times. And again, just like to qualify on that, like when you went into that race, did you have that expectation of like, I'm gonna get my pro card here, or were you just going into it for another race and you happen to win again and you're like, this is about the time now?
Yeah, I like I said, it never really was a huge. I didn't really honestly know that you could just become a pro in triathlon when I started doing triathlons. I thought that was something like, I don't know, that you had to be some part of a group or be in the Olympics or something. I didn't really know. But I just went into the race. I wanted to win.
Right.
And so if you finish in the top, I think it's 2 or 3 overall, then you can use that as your to get your pro card. But I mean, I went in not necessarily to get my pro card, but I did go into the race wanting to win.
That's awesome. So then I guess like you said, what was it that sort of clicked for you? You know, you won some over you had some overall wins, so clearly the skill level was there. But what was it that clicked and made you really decide like, you know, I don't want to be just the age group anymore, like I want to try this being pro.
I guess, doing it, I've won some races, I've qualified for Kona, and I could continue just kind of doing that and staying at that level, or I could really challenge myself knowing that, I'll probably be more middle of the pack, back of the pack, at least to start with.
Mm-hmm.
But having that incentive to get better, and, push myself against the best athletes out there, and really focus on, a lot of my weaker aspects that I could probably let slide if I stayed, just age group racing. I can get away with kind of a slower swim and not working on some of those things that
Right.
now I have to focus on if I want to even be close to being, competitive in that field. And it's just something, to make myself push myself a little bit harder.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah. Keep pushing yourself, keep striving to improve on your own skills. I think that's
Mhm.
awesome. So then you just had your first two actual pro races, which were Clash Miami for the 70.3 distance,
Yeah.
and then Ironman Texas for the first full pro, right? Those are the
Yeah.
cool. Well, let's jump into those really quick. Starting out
Mhm.
with Clash Miami, a race that you had won as an amateur. How was it racing
Right.
that as a pro?
Well, it's a lot different. The race as, an age group athlete is a true 70.3 where, the swim is the same pretty much as the pros, but you don't really race around the track. You run around the tracks kind of, but the course is completely different. So with the pros, everything is inside Miami Speedway. Um,
Mm,
the entire bike course, it's not a true 70.3. I think the bike is only like 39 miles and the run was like 10 and a half, but it's all within the race course. And it was just all, the pros had their own day. So you weren't racing with any age group athletes. So it was very different, than the typical, Ironman races where you're kind of intermixed with all the age group athletes. But it was definitely a different experience, just being out there. And it was just, I think it was maybe 20 women pros that raced that race. I was like one of the last ones out of the water. My swim is extremely weak right now and something I'm definitely working on for this whole year.
yeah, same
Um,
here.
but I made up a lot of ground on the bike. I ended up finishing 8th overall after coming out of the water. I think like 16th or something. So
I mean,
and
that's
it,
for a first pro race. That's awesome. Coming in the top 10 of the pros. That's a
yeah, I
good
was pretty
start.
excited about that. And it was it was definitely a hot day in Miami, but it was an awesome experience doing that as my first race. It was close to home, so it was. I'm glad I did that one to start because it was kind of a good intro. And then Ironman Texas, um, you know, first long distance one, and again the swim
It's a
needs a lot
brutal
of
race.
work.
It's a brutal race.
Yeah, I've raced it a couple times as an age grouper. I don't know that I really want to race it again. It's
Not
very
after that swim itself, like that swim is so freaking nasty. Like
it's disgusting.
I never want to go down to Texas. Ironman Texas was my second full that I did. I did it last year, 2 years ago. Coming out of that water, I was like, I'm never doing this race again.
No, and we found out at like 4 a.m. it wasn't going to be wetsuit legal,
Oh,
which a wetsuit helps me for many reasons, but also the
yeah.
water was 72 degrees and I don't do well with cold water, so I was absolutely freezing like during
Okay.
the race. And then in transition, I was freezing, and like the first 20 miles of the bike, I was still freezing. So,
Well, were
but
you at 70.3 Worlds last year?
no,
Oh, whew, that was a cold.
yeah,
That was cold.
I saw that and I was like, I'm so glad I didn't do that race
Yeah,
because I wouldn't have been able to handle that.
that was a cold race. But yeah, go back. Ironman Texas.
Yeah, but getting on the bike, that bike is just very boring. That two loops on the Hardy and there's
Yeah,
just agents everywhere. It's hard to get around anyone. Um, but I mean, the bike was one of my best bike times. I did pretty well, but I just didn't get enough nutrition in on the bike.
yeah.
I was, like I said, I was really cold coming out of transition the first 20 miles or so. I didn't really take in anything, so I wasn't even thinking about it. And so I got behind pretty bad. And so my run was okay. It wasn't, it's not
Hmm.
what I know I'm capable of doing, but I think I learned a lot, from that race, kind of to set me up for the rest of the season to know a lot of the things I need to work on to kind of move up a little bit more in the field.
Right. And I mean that, especially that bike course, it's deceptively like it seems easy, but it's really not. Like the sun's beating down on you
No,
while you're on the highway, even if it doesn't necessarily feel hot. Like when I did that one, I came off the bike. Granted, one of my nutrition bottles bumped off, so like I didn't have anything
right,
for the last like 40 miles on my bike. It was
right,
bad. Um,
brutal.
but like the bike course seems easy while you're out there, and then when you're coming in, you're like, hold on a second, I'm dehydrated and haven't fueled enough.
Yeah. It was like that last 10 miles, like once you get off the highway, I'm just like, I feel sick. Like,
Yeah. The one saving grace is the section on the run though, where they have uh that like little party area. Do they have that?
oh,
They do
the hippie hollow.
the hippie hollow, whatever it is.
Yeah.
That's like a saving grace. That is the only reason I would want to go back to that course is because that little
No,
section is fun.
the run course is the best part about that race. But yeah, I don't know that I'll be going back to Texas anytime soon.
Yeah. You can try some other races out now, you know?
Exactly.
So compared, I want to go back to Miami in a second here, but again, for doing the full, what were the biggest differences for you racing as a pro versus racing as an age group athlete in that race?
I mean, really, not a lot was that much
Okay.
different. We started, before the age group athletes.
The
We started like
30-minute early start.
yeah, we started like 10 minutes ahead, but the fact like we didn't wear wetsuits, but the age group athletes did get to wear wetsuits. So I was swimming over the top of me, by the time we were getting to the end of the race, because again, my swim needs work,
Right.
but also they're faster swimmers in wetsuits too. So I guess the course maybe a little less congested, because I was, ahead of some of the other athletes, with a 10-minute start,
Hmm.
ahead of them still, mostly age group guys. But then when you make that second loop,
Right.
you're in the middle of everyone anyway. So it really wasn't that much different, I guess, than racing age group, just especially
Okay.
because I came so far back on the swim. I think if I can improve my swim throughout the year and
Yep.
be up closer, that'll change things a lot, because especially if it's a course that isn't 2 loops, if it's just a 1 loop course, that'll change things. It won't be as congested, but for this race
Right.
it really wasn't much different.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting because some of the other first year pros I've talked with here, have really emphasized that in their first few races, like the difference that, aiming for one of those first 2 packs, and how that played a role
Mm-hmm.
throughout the race and like the mental aspect of the race as well.
Mm-hmm.
Did you feel any of that? Like where you said you were kind of in the back coming off the swim, but
Right.
on the bike, were you able to get a little bit closer up to the front of those packs? And how did that play?
Well, I passed a few of the, girls that I recognized were, in the professional field. But they weren't really in packs. It was more just individuals that I was passing. Maybe, 4 or 5. There weren't any really big packs on the course,
Okay.
at least of the pro women. I think maybe more so, like if for one, if I could be up further in the swim, that'll help me get closer to those packs. And maybe more so in like 70.3 races. But they're just really, I didn't at least see from where I was on the course, like huge packs. Obviously, I think the first 3 girls were kind of changing places a lot.
Okay.
But back further, there wasn't a whole lot of, group together there.
Okay, gotcha. Well, then to jump back to Miami really quick, you mentioned that was a little bit of a different course that had a shorter bike.
Mm-hmm.
Did you feel like that played any difference in like overall performance or how that race went for you? Because I mean, you said it was like a 39-mile bike. Cutting 16 miles
Mm-hmm.
off the bike is quite a bit.
Yeah, I definitely felt like I went out a lot harder. Like I was trying to race with a lot more power, but I wouldn't say it's a technical course, but it's not like
Okay.
Daytona where you're just going in an oval. So that
Hmm.
course is a course that there are a lot of turns. So you'd get going, but then you'd have to slow down to make these turns and tight corners.
Oh,
So I do think, I was trying to go out faster than I would for a 70.3. I don't know that my power was even, it was probably similar with all the slowing down and things like that. I think it played a role because I did try to go out harder. But it was also really hot and humid in Miami. So
yeah, it was a little bit down there. Cool. Well, is there anything else that you would like to share about your first 2 pro races?
Nothing that we haven't talked about. Just, I just know I learned a lot from them, and I know a lot of the things I need to work on, and I think it's a good baseline to kind of go for the rest of the year and really fine tune a lot of those things, get better in the swim, get my nutrition down. But it's definitely going to be an interesting year. It'll definitely be different.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, we're going to get into that a little bit later, but first, I want to kind of jump back into your background. You said that you came mostly from running. So, where did you start, and, how did you really transition to triathlon? I think I remember seeing one of your posts saying that you had done like a 3-hour half marathon, which, you've made some huge leaps since that point, if that's the case.
I don't think I've ever run a half marathon that slow.
Okay, maybe it was a marathon. Maybe I misread it.
Yeah, I ran just under a 3-hour marathon last year.
Okay, that's probably what it was. Yeah.
But really, I ran track and cross country in high school. I really didn't I rode crew. I was on the rowing team in college for a little bit, but then I just kind of started running just to it was like stress relief, just something to do recreationally, do some 5Ks here and there. But then it was a goal of mine to do a marathon. So that's kind of what got me into doing more running in college. And it was just like once a year I wanted to do a marathon. I thought that would be fun. And I ended up qualifying for Boston. So I went and did Boston, and that was cool. But all I did was run. I didn't do anything else. And after a while I started getting just these little nagging injuries. And then I ran a marathon in Austin, Texas. And before it, my foot was just killing me, and I thought I had like plantar fasciitis or something. It turns out it was a stress fracture that I ended up running a marathon on.
Ooh. No less than ideal there.
So after that, I had like a month where I couldn't like walk barely. So I just started taking like spinning classes at Lifetime Fitness, and I'm like, oh, biking is kind of cool. I was like,
spinning classes are super fun too.
Yeah, well, I was like, oh, this will be easy. And I was like, oh my God, I was like dying after the first one. But after that, I was like, well, maybe, I should like do something else. I'm not injured all the time. So I bought like a cheap, like aluminum road bike and started going out and riding. And I had a couple friends that were like doing, sprint triathlons, Olympic triathlons, that kind of thing. And this was during like my residency. And I'm like, oh, that'd be kind of cool. I know how to run, and I have a bike now, and I know how to like not drown. I didn't really know how to swim.
Right.
Doggy paddle. So I was like, this will be kind of fun. So I signed up for a sprint triathlon. And
how to get you.
I didn't know what I was doing. And like, I was like, again, last out of the water, I was like doing like breaststroke because I couldn't swim. I had like swam a couple like laps in like the LA fitness pool. And I'm like, oh, I'll be good. But I ended up actually like winning my age group. It was like a very small local race. Well, that was kind of cool. So then I was like, well, I'll do an Olympic one. And then after that, I was like, well, I'll do a half Ironman. And then I just kept wanting to like challenge myself more.
My gosh, it's someone that actually took the proper steps within triathlon. Like you did what you're supposed to do. It's like, all right, start with the sprint, then go Olympic, then 70.3, and then full. Like, that's the smart way to go up. I know the
natural progression.
Yeah, myself included. Like I started with, I did a couple sprints back in high school, right. But like when I started triathlon, I started with 70.3, and I know plenty of people that start with Ironman, like not doing sprints or anything, just like I'm gonna go do an Ironman, which is, having done Ironmans, and I'm sure you can attest too, is a bonkers spot to start.
No, I can't imagine doing that. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of how I got into triathlon.
Well, props to you for taking the smart route into it. So I guess a quick question now is, so how long have you actually been in triathlon now? Like how long have you been
Um,
doing them for?
I guess my first one was 2014.
Okay,
Like this will be this will be the ninth year I've been doing them.
9 years. And out of those 9 years, do you have a favorite race? Do you have a favorite spot that you've raced?
Uh, I'm trying to think. I mean, it's always fun. The races that you like win are fun. So like,
Mhm. Winning's
so
always nice. Winning's always
I was
nice.
like,
You clearly have
I,
a knack for it.
so like 70.3 Florida and Haines City. I won that in December, but I was also the overall age group winner a couple years ago when they had a pro field too. So that one's not bad. The swim there is kind of because it's a lake swim. I like Ironman Florida is not bad. I've done that a few times.
Okay.
I qualified for Kona there, so I like that one too. Although it's kind of boring and flat, but I
Yeah.
like the ones in Florida. I guess probably because they're warmer too.
See, I actually like the
But those
ones
have been
that are
some
a
really
little
good
bit
experiences for
cooler.
me.
I like the ones that are a little bit cooler because I'm naturally very warm, so I overheat very easily. So those summer races are, the ones that would be down in Florida. I would be dying during those. Oof. Um, so you've done a couple different types of races as well. So like you've done the Ironman branded races, and you've done the Clash races. Clash is a little bit newer to the scene. I think maybe they've been around for a little bit. I've started looking into doing some of those races because I like the concept of them being at the speedways. I think it's a cool concept of being engaging for the audience, and then making it
Yeah.
feel a little bit more race like for athletes as well. But I haven't done them yet. So do you have anything to say about like the differences between the races, their styles, and the atmosphere?
So I did Daytona and I've done Miami. And I've done, I did Daytona as an age group athlete and Miami as an age group and pro. They are, I mean, I guess they're a little different. I mean, they're similar, but I guess with the clash races, the couple times I've done them, as an age group athlete, sometimes the bike field got a little bit congested, but I guess that's pretty similar with the Ironman races too. But as far as the atmosphere goes, I think they're actually pretty similar.
Okay.
I think with the clash races, maybe the way they separate out the pros and the age group athletes is very unique, I guess, where they have just a day where the pros race, especially because they're able to do it all in the speedway.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's nice for the pros, especially to kind of have their own day where they're just racing. They separate the men and the women, and they each have their own day, and they're not having to deal with worrying about getting cut off by age group athletes or things like that, or getting in the way with drafting. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that respect, like those races are very unique like that.
Yeah, I think especially with having the, especially for the pros, having them just on the speedway, especially being careful with the
Yes.
drafting, and I can
Hmm.
assume that would get congested. But you think overall, like you do like how they sort of break that out?
Yeah, I like that a lot about the clash races. If you're going to be racing as a pro athlete.
Okay. Would you like to see, and this is, hopefully this comes, but would you like to see more races in that style? Or I guess even with Ironman having some like either shorter, more looped courses, or anything along those style? Or do you think it kind of works for Clash in that setting, but maybe not in an outside setting?
I mean, it works if you're going to separate out the men and women and do the
Mhm.
pros separate from the age groupers. I think if you try to put all the age groupers together on a short course, that would never work. There'd just be way
Yeah,
too many
that's a good
people.
point.
But if you did it, but
Yeah.
doing, and I understand they want from, an entertainment standpoint, and be able to follow everyone and video the whole thing. And if, like I said, if you separate out the pros and the age group and separate out men and women, I think that's definitely,
Mhm.
doing it for everyone. It's just being logistically able to do that. I don't know
Right.
how able they would be. That's why it's very few races that do it.
Yep. Yep, that's definitely a good point. And having again, because like the Clash events, they're more events. Like it's a weekend thing. At least from what I've seen,
Right.
the professionals are on one day. They also have sprint races on those
Mhm.
days, and then they have like
Yep.
the longer course stuff on another day too. Which
Mhm.
again, I haven't experienced this, but I'm actually really curious because I think it sounds like a cool concept where you get to see other people race too,
Exactly.
and really turning it more into like a weekend event instead of just like, oh, I'm gonna go down, I'm gonna do my race, and then I'm gonna leave after
Right.
being really tired now.
Yeah, exactly. No,
Yeah.
it is. It's a really cool experience. For like Clash Miami this year, the pros went Friday. I think Saturday they had a sprint race, and then Sunday they did the half distance race. So it was really cool, and they had some other like little things, little event things that they had in between for everyone to do. So it was very really cool.
Oh, cool. What other like events and small things that they have going on for that?
I remember. Well, I know at Miami, and I think at Daytona did. I know I'm pretty sure at Daytona they did too, where you could ride around the track in the race cars, have someone drive you
Oh,
around, that
fun.
kind of fast laps. They had like a relay, I believe, at Clash Miami, where I think it was just like I think it was a bike relay where they rode I don't know how many miles, 100 miles or something, but like it was divided up in teams of 4 to 6 or something
Oh,
like
cool.
that. So they did like little things like that, and I think they had like a kids race, and they had the duathlon stuff too, and triathlon. So
Mhm.
it was really neat.
Cool. Well, that certainly sounds like a fun event, and I'm definitely looking forward to doing one. I think I'm gonna try to be at Daytona later this year. Hopefully, also racing as a pro. Fingers crossed.
That's awesome. Do you have a
Yeah.
race that you're trying to qualify at?
Not yet. My schedule's been really weird. I've got White Lake next week, May
Okay.
6th. But I don't think it's a pro qualifier because I think the prize purse
Oh.
for that's only like 10,000 instead of the 20,000 necessary.
Oh, okay.
Um, and then I just got in a bike wreck last week too, so I'm like, I haven't been on my bike for 2 weeks, and I got a race next week.
Oh,
So we're gonna see how that goes, and then
oh
I'm gonna try to get
man.
like a late summer qualifier. Try to find one, even though summer's not the ideal time. I'm trying to figure out what that
Well,
race is gonna be. So I haven't figured it out
well,
yet, but I'm gonna
you'll
find
get it.
the race. Um, cool. Well, going back into sort of like the pro season, how does your upcoming season look? What races do you have planned? And I guess as your first season being a pro, do you have any specific goals? Like, what are you looking towards for this upcoming season?
Well, right now, I'm signed up to do 70.3 Chattanooga, which is next month, about a month from
Good
now.
race.
I think I may do like Ironman Coeur d'Alene, either that or maybe like Placid, or I'm not sure. Probably one of the Ironmans that's in the summer. I haven't decided which one yet. And then I'm not signed up for anything yet, but probably another 70.3 in there somewhere. Kind of going to see how this one goes next month and kind of go from there.
Okay, yeah. Sometimes you just gotta play it like race to race.
Right.
But it sounds like you've got like a pretty packed schedule there. Depending on what I've got going on, I may try to come down and see you at Chattanooga 70.3 because I'm up in
Awesome.
Nashville right around the corner.
Okay.
I've
Nice.
done that race for the last 2 or 3 years, I think, and it's honestly
Oh,
it's
cool.
the bike course is one of my favorite bikes. The swim, it's downstream, it's a little bit long, but like it's fine, it's good. There's nothing too special. The run
Right.
course, not to get in the head, but the run course is pretty trashed.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's got a lot of like turning around, some big hills,
Oh,
some, like
geez.
really it's a weird course, not to get in your head, but it, I think it might be the same weekend as my cousin's graduation. If it's not, I'll definitely come down and support you.
That'd be
Um,
awesome.
if it is the same weekend, I kind of got to prioritize my cousin's
Well, and that's
graduation.
understandable.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Awesome. So yeah, so you've got a pretty packed schedule coming up, and you said that your goals for this season are just sort of like plan it out. Of course, working on, I think earlier you mentioned working on improving your swim, and
Yes.
just kind of steadily figuring out what it is like to compete as a pro. Does that sound
Exactly.
so I guess the next two questions are, what are you doing to improve your swim? And then what type of hours are you putting in now? And do you see any change in your training schedule?
So I actually just started working with some coaches it's called Front Pack Swim. And so it's kind of, all virtual basically, but we send them videos and we have meetings every week and going over stroke analysis, drills, things like that. They have some swim camps set up. So this is the first time I've ever done that and had someone look at my video and, peek what I'm doing. So I just started that a couple weeks ago. So I'm just getting into that right now. And hopefully we'll start seeing some improvement. I've learned that I have a lot to work on. So
yeah.
And as you know, with swimming, it's a process, and you have to be very patient after you've taught yourself to swim wrong for the last, 9 years, trying to get that out of your head and learn a completely different muscle movement pattern. So that's going to be a work in progress probably for the whole year. But that's
and probably past that.
Yes, well, exactly. That'll be for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
But that's definitely going to be my biggest goal this year. I mean, obviously, I want to get faster on the bike and faster on the run, but I really have to do something about my swim because it's pretty atrocious right now.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I started going to master swim this year. My thing is like I've always been a strong swimmer, but not the best technique, and so. Yeah. Like I've been able to swim strong consistently, but like never peak into that where it needs to be for pro swimming. And it's one of those things that's very technique driven. So like
exactly,
you can be strong and not fast.
Oh yeah, for sure. And then you see some of these like little tiny girls just flying by you. So
yeah. It's baffling sometimes being out there on the starting line or like coming through going through T1 and just seeing who's ahead of you, and you're like, how in the world did that person swim faster? What is going on?
Exactly. Yeah, and it's so much more technique than fitness, I feel like. So it's gonna be a work in progress.
But it sounds like you've at least got a pretty good team to help you working on that specifically. So great goal.
Yeah.
As far as like the training hours and your training plan, how is that looking for you?
It kind of, I don't have a coach. I kind of coach myself. And so my training kind of varies, and I kind of go by feel too. Like I try to do like more of like a 3 weeks on hard and then kind of take a week off, week off, an easier week.
Yep. It's a similar structure what I do too.
To kind of just regenerate and recoup a little bit. But I guess, I mean, I'm probably around, a little over 20, 25 hours a week, maybe. That may go up. I do want to improve my bike power a little bit. And really with the swim, it's not so much swimming more, but probably spending more time at the pool because I will be working on technique more. So
right.
Putting in a whole lot more as far as, meters or yards, but at least spending a lot more time swimming slower and trying to get the technique down. So that may actually add to my training hours.
The whole was it slowing down to speed up?
Yeah. It's very counterintuitive to me though. Like I'll start like trying to swim faster and I'm just spinning my wheels. So
yeah. I mean that's how it is in really in all three sports. There is an aspect of the slowing down to speed up. Of course there is a balance to it as well. Like the slowing down is in reference to doing your easy stuff easy, not doing your hard stuff easier. That's stuff you want to do harder. Cool. So training plans underway. You said you're doing self-coaching as well. So clearly that's done pretty well for you. Getting yourself to pro doing self-coaching. Congrats on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I guess I'm trying to think. I think I've covered most everything. Is there any stories, anything in particular that you would really like to share with people about your story, whether it's advice for people or anything along those lines that we maybe didn't cover yet?
Not really. I mean, I just think, if you want to challenge yourself, you should just go for it. I mean, what do you have to lose? So,
Yeah.
um, if you have a chance to do something different and maybe a little bit harder, but why sit back, Might as well try something different and really, really challenge yourself.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you've clearly embraced that. And again, I want to wish you the absolute best in your, in your pro journey here. Congrats on getting your pro card. Definitely excited to see where you take it, and I'll be making sure to follow you in your journey. And I will. Do you have what are the best spots for anyone else that wants to follow you on your journey?
I really pretty much just use Instagram.
Okay.
Doc House 12 is my handle there, but I'm not huge on social media. I probably need to post a little bit more and be more out there, which I may do as the season goes on. So,
Mhm.
pretty much the only social media I go on right now.
Okay, cool. Well, I'll make sure to link that down below, so anyone that does want to follow your pro journey will be able to do so easily.
All
And
right.
again, yeah, thanks for coming on, and best of luck. Maybe I'll see you down in Chattanooga.
That would be awesome. I'll look for you.
Awesome. Sounds good. If you enjoyed listening to Holly's story, make sure to drop a like on this video. And if you have any questions, you can leave them in the comments down below. Also, I'm going to link Holly's Instagram below. So if you want to follow her pro journey, you can do so following that link in the description. I'll also have my coaching and other information down there. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and check it out as well. Again, Holly, best of luck in your pro career. And for everyone else, happy training.